There is a crisis unfolding in retirement across America right now, and it is not the one you have been warned about. It is not about running out of money. It is not about market crashes or Social Security shortfalls or Medicare costs spiraling out of control. It is something quieter, something more personal, and in many ways, something far more heartbreaking. It is the story of people who spent 40 years doing everything right, who saved faithfully and sacrificed deliberately and delayed gratification with a discipline that most of the world never manages, who arrived at retirement with enough and then kept on saving, who held back year after year, watching their portfolio grow instead of shrink, telling themselves they were being responsible, while the trips they always planned to take stayed on the list, the grandchildren they wanted to take to Paris grew up, and the experiences they had promised their future selves slowly became harder to imagine having at all. New research from Morningstar's Behavioral Insights Group has now documented what retirement counselors and financial planners have quietly observed for years. The majority of retirees who have saved adequately are systematically and significantly underspending. They are dying with more money than they retired with. And the most stunning finding of all is that this behavior cannot be explained by fear of running out of money, by low financial literacy, or by a desire to leave an inheritance. It is explained by something far more human. The habits of a lifetime do not dissolve on the day you retire. And nobody ever gave these people permission to let them go. Today, I am going to walk you through what this research actually found, what it means for the way you are living right now, and then I am going to share something near the end of this video that most retirees never discover. A combination of strategies and overlooked benefits that can dramatically change both the financial picture and the emotional experience of retirement, without requiring you to take a single dollar more of risk. Stay with me all the way through, because the final section of this video is the one that could give back something more valuable than any dollar amount. It could give back the permission to finally live the life you earned. Before we go any further, I want to pause and ask you something that matters. Because this video is not about abstract research or financial theory. It is about your life. So please, leave a comment below right now and tell me two things. Tell me your age. And tell me the thing that is holding you back most right now, whether that is in retirement or as you approach it. Is it the fear of medical bills that could overwhelm a carefully built budget? Is it Medicare costs you cannot fully predict? Is it watching your savings and feeling like the number is never quite high enough to feel safe? Is it the guilt of spending money you spent 40 years telling yourself not to touch? Is it caring for a spouse while trying to protect your own future? Whatever it is, share it below. Because your answer shapes future videos, and it tells every other person watching tonight that the thing they are quietly carrying is shared by more people than they realize. Now let me set the stage for why this Morningstar research hit me the way it did, because you need to understand the context to feel the full weight of what it found. For decades, the retirement planning conversation has been dominated by one central question. How much can you safely withdraw from your portfolio without running out of money? The most famous answer to that question is what has come to be known as the 4% rule. Developed by financial researcher William Bengen in 1994, the rule says that if you withdraw 4% of your portfolio value in your first year of retirement and adjust that dollar amount for inflation each subsequent year, historical data shows that your money would have survived every single 30-year retirement period on record, including the Great Depression, including the stagflation of the 1970s, including the dot-com collapse. Every worst-case scenario in American financial history. The 4% rule was designed as a floor, the absolute minimum sustainable withdrawal under the most catastrophic historical conditions. And yet, over time, something strange happened. Rather than treating the 4% rule as a floor, most retirees began treating it as a ceiling. The research evolved. Morningstar publishes updated sustainable withdrawal rates annually. Guardrail strategies allow retirees to take more in good market years and reduce slightly in down years, producing significantly higher lifetime income than rigid withdrawal rules. Flexible spending approaches follow similar principles. And dynamic strategies tied to required minimum distribution tables. The mandatory annual withdrawals the IRS requires from traditional retirement accounts starting at age 73 actually produce some of the highest levels of lifetime income of any withdrawal method studied. Morningstar found that an RMD-style strategy generated the highest lifetime income of all the approaches they analyzed. All of this research was developed with one goal: to help retirees spend more of their own money, more safely, more sustainably, and with less anxiety. And then Morningstar's Behavioral Insights group published their latest findings. And what they found changed the entire conversation. Here's what the research actually says, and I want you to sit with these numbers long enough to feel what they mean. Half of all retirees choose the simplest possible approach to managing their retirement spending. They either calculate their current expenses and withdraw only that amount, or they spend only the dividends and interest their portfolio generates without ever touching the principal, or they simply anchor to their required minimum distribution and withdraw nothing more. All of the sophisticated research on guardrail strategies, dynamic spending, flexible withdrawal systems, and bucket approaches, research specifically designed to help retirees maximize the money they worked a lifetime to accumulate. Half of all retirees set it aside entirely without consideration. But here is the piece that truly demands your attention. Retirees who have at least the median amount in investable assets, approximately $200,000, consistently underspend relative to what they could sustainably withdraw. Across the full span of retirement, many retirees see their wealth increase rather than decrease. Their portfolios grow while they are supposed to be drawing them down. And this pattern holds even among retirees who have a stated desire to leave money to their children or who are planning for an unusually long retirement. You might think those two groups explain the pattern entirely. Of course, someone who wants to leave an inheritance will spend less. Of course, someone worried about a 40-year retirement will be conservative. But Morningstar isolated those groups, and the pattern persisted across the broader population regardless. And then the finding that stopped me completely. Even retirees using more sophisticated withdrawal strategies still tend to leave significant money remaining after 30 years of withdrawals. As Morningstar's Director of Personal Finance, Christine Benz, stated directly in the research, even the retirees who spend in line with their base case will tend to have significant remaining balances after 30 years. The people doing everything right are still holding back, and 98% of retirees surveyed had no intention of changing their approach. 98% watching their portfolios compound, knowing other options exist, and choosing to stay exactly where they are. I want to tell you about a man named Lawrence. Lawrence was 74 years old, a retired machinist from Western Pennsylvania. He had worked for 36 years at the same manufacturing plant, contributed faithfully to his 401k, paid off his home, and retired at 68 with just over $280,000 in retirement savings. Lawrence had always lived modestly. He drove the same truck for 12 years. He grew vegetables in his backyard. He never took a vacation that cost more than a few $100s because he believed deeply and genuinely that every dollar saved was a dollar protected for the future. When he retired, Lawrence continued living exactly the same way. He drew only his required minimum distributions. He spent only what his essential expenses required. His portfolio, rather than declining gradually the way retirement income models predict, actually grew over the first 5 years of his retirement because his Social Security and his modest RMDs together covered his expenses, and he never touched the rest. Lawrence's daughter told me that her father had mentioned, more than once, a trip to Ireland that he and his late wife had always planned to take together. She passed away before they made it. Lawrence is still planning to go. But his knees have made long travel increasingly difficult. And last year he told his daughter that he was not sure the trip was realistic anymore. There is no version of Lawrence's story where the money is the problem. The money was always there. The permission never arrived. And that is the quiet tragedy this research is documenting at scale. Now, you might reasonably ask, if retirees are not underspending because they fear running out of money, and not because they lack financial knowledge, and not because they plan to leave everything to their children, then why are they doing it? Morningstar's answer is both simple and profound. Status quo bias, the absence of goals, and a lifetime of deeply wired saving behavior that the brain does not know how to reverse simply because a calendar date changed. Think about what you spent your entire adult life being told. Save more than you spend. Delay gratification. Protect the principal. Build the portfolio. Do not touch the account if you can avoid it. These are virtuous behaviors during the accumulation phase of life. They serve you beautifully for 30 or 40 years. And then you retire. And suddenly, the virtuous behavior is supposed to flip. You are supposed to draw down the portfolio. You are supposed to allow the balance to decline gradually in a sustainable, planned way. You are supposed to spend. But the human brain does not flip like a switch. 40 years of habit, identity, and emotional wiring do not dissolve because you filed your final tax withholding form. We tend to keep doing what we have always done. We protect the money. We spend as little as possible. We feel vaguely uncomfortable every time the account balance goes down, even by the planned and expected amount. And in the absence of clear goals for retirement, in the absence of a roadmap that says, here's what this money is for, and here's the life you are building with it, we default to what feels safest. And what feels safest is spending as little as possible and watching the number stay high. Now stay with me, because I want to show you what this costs in real dollars. And then I want to share something that very few retirees ever discover. A combination of overlooked programs and benefit strategies that can address both sides of this challenge simultaneously. Before that, if this conversation is resonating with you, please take 5 seconds to like this video so the platform shows it to other retirees who need to hear it. Subscribe to this channel so you never miss an update that could affect your retirement income or your benefits. And share this with one person you love who is in retirement or approaching it, because the insight I am about to share in the next section is the one that changes the picture for the people who find it in time. Let me show you what underspending actually costs in concrete terms, because sometimes the emotional weight of this conversation only fully lands when you see the numbers. Consider the strategy that Morningstar finds most common among retirees, spending only dividends and interest without touching the principal. The S&P 500 currently yields approximately 1% annually. On a portfolio of $200,000, the median retirement account balance, that dividend and interest approach generates approximately $2,000 per year. A balanced 60-40 portfolio might yield around 2%, producing approximately $4,400 annually from the same account. By contrast, Morningstar's current sustainable withdrawal rate of approximately 3.9% on that identical $200,000 portfolio produces nearly $7,800 per year. And a flexible guardrail approach, which adjusts withdrawals based on market performance, can generate $10,000 to $12,000 annually from the same account without meaningfully increasing the risk of running out of money. The gap between the most conservative common approach and the most research-supported sustainable approach is not a marginal difference. It is the difference between $2,000 a year and $10,000 a year from the same amount of savings. That is $8,000 of potential annual living that is being left unspent. Over a 20-year retirement, at the midpoint of that range, we are talking about more than $120,000 in experiences, in relationships, in memories, in the trip to Ireland that Lawrence keeps planning but has not taken, that are sitting quietly in an account growing toward an inheritance that nobody asked for at the expense of a life that deserved to be lived. I want to tell you about a woman named Patricia. Patricia was 71 years old, a retired nurse from suburban Atlanta. She had saved carefully throughout her career, had a traditional IRA with approximately $340,000, received Social Security of about $2,200 per month, and owned her home outright. Patricia was, by any reasonable measure, financially secure. She was also exhausted by the anxiety she felt every month when she withdrew money for expenses beyond her Social Security income. She told a benefits counselor at her community senior center that every withdrawal felt like losing ground, even though intellectually she knew her savings were more than adequate for her needs. The counselor did something that changed Patricia's retirement fundamentally. She sat down with Patricia and walked her through not just her withdrawal strategy, but the full landscape of programs Patricia was not accessing. Patricia qualified for a Medicare savings program that eliminated her Part B premium entirely, saving her over $2,000 annually. She qualified for Extra Help, the federal program that reduces prescription drug costs dramatically, which cut her monthly medication costs from $160 to less than $12. She qualified for her state's senior property tax freeze program, which locked her property tax at its current level and prevented future increases on the home she had owned for 22 years. And she qualified for a state utility assistance program that covered a significant portion of her winter heating bills. The combined effect of these 4 stacked programs added the equivalent of more than $5,000 annually to Patricia's effective spending power without requiring her to withdraw a single additional dollar from her portfolio. And here is what changed for Patricia that mattered more than any dollar figure. When she understood that her fixed costs were dramatically lower than she had been paying, her anxiety about withdrawals dropped substantially. She began taking modest additional withdrawals, not out of fear, but out of genuine planning. She booked a trip to visit her sister in New Mexico that she had been postponing for 3 years. She started a small garden renovation project she had been dreaming about. She told the counselor 6 months later that retirement finally felt like something she had chosen rather than something happening to her. Patricia's story illustrates something critically important that the Morningstar research only partially captures. The underspending problem in retirement is not purely psychological. It is also informational. Many retirees are holding back on spending, not only because of lifelong saving habits, but because they genuinely do not know that their fixed costs could be dramatically lower than they currently are. They do not know that Medicare savings programs exist and can eliminate their Part B premium. They do not know that extra help can reduce prescription costs from hundreds of dollars to nearly zero. They do not know that most states offer property tax relief programs for seniors that can freeze or significantly reduce their annual property tax burden. They do not know that SNAP food assistance is available to millions of seniors who assume their income or savings disqualify them, when in fact the eligibility rules are far more generous than most people realize. They do not know that LIHEAP, the Federal Low-Income Home Energy Assistance Program, can cover substantial portions of their heating and cooling costs. And they do not know that all of these programs can be stacked and coordinated simultaneously, creating a cumulative reduction in fixed monthly expenses that can be genuinely transformative for a fixed-income household. When your Medicare premium disappears, when your prescription costs drop to nearly zero, when your property taxes are frozen, when your grocery and energy costs are partially covered by programs you have every right to access, the monthly math of retirement changes completely. And when the monthly math changes, the psychological experience of spending from your portfolio changes with it. The withdrawal that felt dangerous at $1,000 a month feels manageable at $500 when the programs that should have been supporting you all along are finally in place. Let me share one more story, because I think it completes the picture. Her name was Vivian. Vivian was 78 years old, a retired librarian from rural Missouri, living on Social Security of approximately $1,900 per month and a small pension of $600. She had approximately $150,000 in a traditional IRA that she had not touched since retiring at 66. She lived frugally, was genuinely content with a simple life, and had never pursued any of the benefit programs available to her because she assumed, as many seniors do, that programs designed to help people with financial need were not for someone who had savings. A volunteer from her county's Area Agency on Aging sat down with Vivian and walked her through her actual eligibility. Vivian qualified for extra help at the full benefit level, which eliminated nearly all of her prescription drug costs. She qualified for the Medicare savings program that covered her Part B premium. She qualified for Missouri's senior property tax credit. And she qualified for SNAP. Together, these programs freed up approximately $450 per month in expenses Vivian had been paying out of pocket. Vivian cried during the meeting. Not because she was struggling. Not because she was in crisis, but because she realized she had been paying for things she did not need to pay for, every single month, for years. And she realized that with those costs reduced, she could afford to help her granddaughter with community college tuition, something she had wanted to do for 2 years but felt she could not justify. Vivian made the first tuition payment the following month. She told the volunteer it was the best money she had ever spent. Now, I want to come back to the Morningstar research one more time, because there is a finding buried in it that I believe is the most important practical takeaway of everything we have discussed today. The research concluded that goal setting may be the missing driver of engaged retirement spending. Retirees who spend well in retirement are not simply the ones who understand withdrawal strategies intellectually. They are the ones who have a clear and emotionally meaningful answer to the question, what is this money actually for? During your working years, the goals were clear. Pay off debt, build the emergency fund, save for retirement, buy the house, send the kids to college. The goals drove the behavior, and the behavior was sustained because the destination was visible and specific. But retirement removes the destination. You have arrived. And in the absence of a new set of goals, the brain defaults to the behavior it knows. Save, protect, hold back. If you are in retirement right now, or approaching it, I want to ask you something directly, not as a financial question, but as a life question. What do you actually want to do with the years ahead? Not the financially responsible version of that answer, the real version. Where do you want to go? Who do you want to spend time with while you are still healthy enough to fully enjoy it? What experience have you been promising yourself for the last decade that keeps getting pushed to next year? What would you do with your money if you genuinely believed it was safe to use it? Because the research is clear on one thing. The retirees who regret their spending decisions almost never regret spending too much. They regret spending too little. They regret the trips not taken, the experiences not shared, the moments deferred to a future that arrived before the trip was booked. As we close today, I want to say something directly from me to you, because I think it matters more than any withdrawal rate or benefit program we discussed. You spent a lifetime being told that the virtuous thing was to save, to delay, to protect, to build. And you did it. You did it faithfully and responsibly and at real cost to your present self in service of your future self. And now your future self has arrived, and the virtuous thing has changed. The virtuous thing now is to spend with intention, to live with generosity toward yourself, to take the trip, to have the experience, to help the people you love while you are here, to see the effect of that help. You are not behind if you have not yet given yourself this permission. You are not alone, because the research shows that the majority of retirees who saved adequately are in exactly this same place, holding back by habit in a retirement that could look very different. And you still have options. More options than you probably know. There are benefit programs you may qualify for right now that could reduce your fixed costs significantly and free up money you are already not spending. There are withdrawal strategies that could sustainably increase your annual income without meaningfully increasing your risk. And there is a life waiting to be lived, the one you worked 40 years to fund, that does not need your permission to be extraordinary. It just needs you to show up for it. Please share this video with someone who needs to hear it. Leave your age and your biggest retirement challenge in the comments below. Subscribe so you never miss information that could protect or enhance your retirement. And take care of yourself this week. You have earned every good thing that is waiting for you. Go claim it. I will see you in the next one.